Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling potentially hopeless, powerless, angry, perhaps even paralyzed? Yeah, of course you do. Of course we feel this way. Because as Senator Cory Booker so beautifully said when he took to the floor at 6:59 p.m. on Monday, taking the floor of the Senate with the intention of disrupting Senate business for as long as possible, because these are not normal times. These are not normal times. I'm a therapist, and every day I sit with people who look at me and say, how is this happening in America? I don't know. This is not what America was founded on. And what's beautiful about what Cory Booker did is he set a record for the chamber's longest speech when he held the floor for more than 25 hours, surpassing the late Senator Strom Thurmond's 1957 filibuster against civil rights, which lasted 24 hours and 18 minutes. Booker yielded the floor at 8:05 p.m. on Tuesday night, adding 48 minutes to the record. He said, maybe my ego got caught up, that maybe, just maybe, I could break the record of this man who tried to stop the rights upon which I stand. I'm not here, though, because of his speech. I'm here despite his speech. So Cory Booker, a black man, Strom Thurmond was filibustering in 1957 because he did not want people of color to have equal rights. And Cory Booker just broke his record trying to wake us all up into action. There were 400 million views of his speech on TikTok. People are angry. And Brene Brown, who, if you're not familiar with her, I highly recommend you become so, because she has incredible things to say about emotions that are so validating. For example, she says, I think anger is often the most compassionate response to experiencing or witnessing injustice. It can be a powerful catalyst for change that doesn't need to be explained or justified. And I think that behind the anger is a tempest of pain, grief, betrayal, disappointment. It's a catalyst. Holding on to it will make us exhausted and sick. Internalizing anger will take away our joy and spirit. Externalizing anger will make us less effective in our attempts to create change and forge connection. It's an emotion that we need to transform into something life-giving: courage, love, change, compassion, justice. But yet we have Elon Musk, who is, for all intents and purposes, seemingly the acting president, who says things like, we have got civilizational suicide empathy going on. The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. These are the words of Elon Musk. The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. That it's a bug in Western civilization and that it's been weaponized, which is absurd, because empathy fuels connection. Empathy fuels connection, and leaders who embrace vulnerability and respond to setbacks with empathy are more likely to foster a culture of learning and growth. That comes from Brene Brown. Empathy fuels connection. So leaders who have the capacity to be vulnerable and respond to the setbacks of the people of this country, their constituents, with empathy, are likely to support a culture of learning and growth. But guess what? It's very clear that Trump and the whole MAGA team wants to get rid of learning, because learning inspires critical thinking. Learning inspires question asking. Compassion is empathy plus action, meaning that it's the practice of relating to others and, as a result, acting to ease their suffering. And what we are living through right now is in direct dissonance with that. This is a country that has been fighting a metastasizing cancerous tumor that has grown to such a size right now that believes that the foundation of our country, the we the people, that all are welcome, that America is a melting pot, that it is a place where people can practice and believe in whatever they believe, as long as we don't violate each other's basic human rights, as long as we don't cause each other harm. And what we're living through right now is in direct dissonance with that. So of course you feel this way, because empathy is not the fundamental weakness of our civilization. In fact, empathy is one of the things this country was founded on. Now, Prentice Hemphill, who is a brilliant queer Black thought leader who wrote this incredible book, What It Takes to Heal, talks about Harriet Tubman and her work building and fostering the Underground Railroad that saved the lives of so many people. And he says, Harriet represented something much more dangerous and holy than the book led on. They're talking about their history book in school. She was the freedom the forefathers alluded to, but were terrified of. She was the true story of the heart of this country, the contradiction and pursuit, the hidden pulse under the war drums, a Black woman and a white man's vision for the world. He says, they say, I am most interested in what I can never know, how she learned to trust her dreaming and how she committed deeply enough to stay the course. Some say that in our time of overwhelming chaos, we are at the end of futures, out of resources and hope, that there is nothing left to dream in this reality, that we are trapped on a timeline where we keep remaking disaster movies until we meet our final catastrophe. But what would it look like if we refused their vision of the future altogether? What if there were no clock? Doomsday clock is what they're referring to. What if we were able to recalibrate and find a different way? When we live in the past, we can no longer learn. It's this process of learning from our history that is most threatened today, and our failure to do so dooms us to repeat our mistakes. We can look back and recover the lessons, but we can never forget that we are here, that the complexities and messiness of our here and now were sown by our own hands. And we can make something grow, something that is alive, precisely because of how it weaves the past and present into a new offering, as beautiful as the most inspired gifts our ancestors left us. To vision futures is to conjure something that sits outside of your time and circumstance while being firmly rooted in the moment. To listen for the calls of what is not yet here but is waiting just in the wings, the way that Harriet did. Even in the most unsteady and dangerous of times, even now, we need our imaginations and we need visions. And they started the beginning of this book with a quote from Robin D.G. Kelley, author of Freedom Dreams, The Black Radical Imagination. And the quote is, without new visions, we don't know what to build, only what to knock down. We only end up confused, rudderless, and cynical, but we forget that making a revolution is not a series of clever maneuvers and tactics, but a process that can and must transform us. Senator Booker quoted John Lewis multiple times in his speech. John Lewis, who said very beautifully that we need to make good trouble. We need to make good trouble right now. We need to be brave. We need to honor what we're feeling and say, of course we feel this way. Of course we feel this way. And then what do we do about it? We're paralyzed. So many of us are paralyzed. I've been paralyzed. That's what fear does. And we cannot be paralyzed in this moment. We cannot allow what is happening to continue. So what do? We educate ourselves. We educate ourselves with good sources, right? Being careful. There is so much on social media that is inaccurate, that is sensationalizing, that is trying to create fear and division and disconnection, because the power of the people is stronger than the people in power, and they are afraid of that. So what I encourage you to do is begin by reading Letters to an American by Heather Cox Richardson on Substack. or watching her YouTube videos or listening to her podcast. She is a history professor at Boston College. If you're not familiar with her, she is one of the most wonderful sources of information, providing it in the context of history. Robert Reich, who is the former Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton, also has an amazing Substack. There is a website called allsides.com that provides left, center, and right-leaning sources for every headline. The Associated Press, just be careful, because we can find information anywhere that we want to align with our beliefs. And so if we're looking for the things to be afraid of, we'll find them. But it's time to recognize that these are not normal times and we need to make good trouble. We feel this way because these are not normal times. And of course we feel this way.